Okay, this video is just going to be a little one on key terms for genetics before we get started onto it. Okay, so all of our inheritance topic. Alright, so what I want to do is take you back to thinking about chromosomes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a chromosome, and then what I'm also going to do is draw its homologous pair. So if we're okay with the idea that we've got here a pair of homologous chromosomes, yeah, which means that that is one chromosome and that is the other chromosome. So it could be that this is the one you got from your mum and this is the one you got from your dad. We can see that at the stage they're at, they're coiled up and attached to their sister chromatids, so that we know that at this point DNA replication must have taken place because we've got identical copies. So we're looking here at a diploid organism. Yeah, diploid. Okay, we can tell it's diploid because in diploid you've got 2N and here we've got 2 copies of chromosome number 1 or chromosome number, whichever chromosome you want it to be, doesn't matter. Okay, now what we're saying about these homologous chromosomes, the reason we know they're homologous is because if you look at a particular gene locus, so for instance here, that the gene you'll find at this location is going to be the same gene as you'll find in the same location in its homologous pair. Okay, same gene, controlling the same characteristic. Okay, however, in homologous pairs they don't have to be the same alleles. Okay, okay, so it doesn't have to be the same alleles. So it could be that on this chromosome we've got a big B, okay, which means that here will also be a big B because these are identical sister chromatids, yeah. Okay, so these two do have the identical alleles, so that would also be a big B. But here, although it's going to be a B, it doesn't have to be a big B. It could be a lowercase, it could be a recessive allele, it could be a little b, and therefore that would also be a little b. So what we could have going on is we could have homologous chromosomes showing the same alleles, so they could both be big B here and a big B here, and we'd say that the genotype is big B, big B. Or it could be what we've shown in this diagram, which is a big B on one chromosome and a little b on the other chromosome. Okay, you could have inherited a big B from your mum, a little b from your dad, and at this point you've done DNA replication. You've now got 2 copies on the sister chromatids because this is what you inherited from your mum and you've made a copy of it, and this is what you got from your dad and you've made a copy of that as well, and it gives you this particular genotype. Or it could be that you got a little b from each parent and you have that for your genotype. Okay, now what I need you to remember, which is just GCSE content, is what we call each of these. So okay, genotype is the combination of alleles that you have inherited. Okay, and in a diploid organism, which we are, obviously we're going to have 2 copies of each allele because we've got one from each parent. So here we can say that these 2 are both dominant, so we can say they're both the same and they're both dominant. So you can have homozygous dominant, which is that one. And hopefully you'd also be able to see that we can also have homozygous if they're recessive. So here would be our homozygous because they're both the same, recessive though because they're both lowercase. So we've got homozygous dominant, we've got homozygous recessive, and in the middle, this one here, they're not the same, so this would be our heterozygous. Okay, so we've got quite a lot of key terms here. We're reminding ourselves about chromosomes, and we're reminding ourselves of what a homologous pair of chromosomes is. Okay, same genes, but not necessarily the same alleles. We've reminded ourselves what diploid is. Diploid is the same as 2n. So for humans, our diploid number is 46. And in our gametes, we only have the haploid number, which is obviously just n. And for us, that would be 23 chromosomes that we pass on, so that the next generation goes back to being diploid again. Remember, it's maintenance of the chromosome number across generations. We've reminded ourselves of what the sister chromatids are and that the DNA found there is identical. So unlike in a homologous pair where they've got the same genes but not necessarily the same alleles, in identical sister chromatids we've actually got the same alleles showing as well. We've reminded ourselves of what genotype is. It's the combination of alleles that you have for a particular gene. We've reminded ourselves about homozygous and heterozygous and dominant and recessive. The only other word that we need to add in here is the word phenotype, which I'll stick over here. Okay. Phenotype is the expression. Okay. The expression means what you see showing up as a characteristic. So if we say that it's been expressed, then we know it's showing up. Okay. Expression is showing up in your characteristic. So your genotype might be that you've got a big B and a little b. Your phenotype would be the expression of that genotype plus the impact of your environment, okay? So there's two things that control your genotype, your phenotype. It is the genotype plus the environment. Okay, so two things control your phenotype: what you've inherited plus the effect of your environment. Okay, so it might be that you've inherited alleles that are going to give you light brown hair, but you decided to dye it red. So there you've got your expression is not just what you've inherited, it's also what you've done to yourself. Okay, and that goes for lots of different things. So I mean, think about the fact that if you go in the sun a lot, does your skin tone change colour? So you've got what you've inherited plus the effect of spending a lot of time in the sunshine. Does your hair colour change in the sunshine? Do you develop freckles where you wouldn't normally have them? That's the combination of genotype and environment that's giving you your phenotype. So you need to go into the A-level content and all of the videos that I'm making coming up with this set of key terms really firmly embedded in your head. Okay? So you need to make some notes on this before you start looking at any of the other videos to do with inheritance.